one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Mrs. Brenner.
Here.
Mr. Bucher.
Here.
Mr. Herrera.
Here.
Mrs. Haupt.
Here.
Ms. Mayville.
Here.
Mrs. Whitcomb.
Here.
Mr. Zickert.
Here.
Before we start the public hearing of the board, as a reminder, all board members are expected to follow our approved meeting norms and board protocols as follows. I, as the board president, will preside over the meeting, and we, as a board, will adhere to board policies, board processes, and board procedures. We will model the behaviors expected of students, staff, and community members. We have an obligation to express our opinions and respect others' opinions. We will remain business-oriented, objective, and ends-focused in our work. We will assume positive intent, and we will listen alertly to the discussion. All right, next item on the agenda is a presentation on the potential reconfiguration and possible closure of Perry Elementary School, and I'm going to hand the meeting over to Dr. Shug at this time.
Good morning. Thank you all for being here. I know it's an absolutely beautiful day out here, and I'm sorry we don't have any natural lighting for you down here, but I'm going to go ahead and walk through this presentation. I know that some of you have heard the presentation before. I also want to make sure that you are aware that the presentation is available online, so you do have access to all that information, so you don't have to worry about capturing the notes or the slides if you would like to just listen and engage. Again, I'm going to go through this pretty quickly. Last time I did not take questions. I'm going to go ahead and give some time for questions as well at the end this time. So if there are some questions that you have, we'll be sure to emphasize that, especially because I'm going to go through the presentation a little bit quickly, okay? All right, so first slide is our objective, which is really, we are here today to hear from you, to get feedback from you regarding the possible closure of Perry Elementary School. On our agenda today is going to be this presentation, followed by any questions, and then your opportunity for public comment. A recap of this process, we have been working on the Master Facilities Plan back through January of 2023. We have taken some very specific steps to address that, completing a facility assessment for the entire district in October, doing a demographic study following that to gauge what it is we anticipate in terms of community growth and student population growth over the next 10 years. And now we are in the process of using all of the information that's been gathered over that past year and a half and then looked at by our Master Facilities Design team to bring some possible scenarios and proposals for a master facilities plan. The next slide highlights our strategic plan goals, which we kept at the forefront of our thinking as we worked through our master facilities planning process, especially goal number 5, which is that operational resources, which is really talking about making sure that we have plans like this in place. The demographic study that I've already alluded to looks out 5 to 10 years. It's important to note that a demographic study really looks at residential growth. At our last meeting, there was some conversation about some anticipated growth in our community in terms of our economic development. Stellantis, for example, Walmart Distribution Center. We do anticipate that. We are very hopeful that's going to bring some student and residential growth to our community as well. But a demographic study really looks at where people might live in the community. But because we know there's a lot of growth going on, economically, we have contracted with our demographers to come back over the next 2 years to help us ensure that the information that we have is as accurate as it can be. In terms of Perry specifically, we currently have 260 students who live in this Perry Elementary School attendance area. 162 of those students attend Perry. 98 in that attendance area do not attend Perry for various reasons, some of them around accessibility as well as language support. And 32 students choose to attend Perry School who are not in that Perry attendance area. For right now, a total of 194 students that we serve there. And on the next slide is just a graph of that breakdown of why students might not be attending school at Perry who live there. And you can see that 22% of those students not attending are because of dual language needs that we are not able to provide at Perry Elementary School. And speaking of dual language needs, we do have a translator here this morning. Is there anyone who is requiring any translation services? All right, thank you very much. This highlights our community participation and really talks about the workshops that took place over the past several months, year and a half really, to take a look at that master facilities plan. And part of the work that they did was create a vision statement, which really talks about our facilities overall. And you can see bolded there are some of the key phrases that they came up with that they would like to see for all of our facilities. Pride and belonging, safe and supportive, innovative, collaborative, community, open, flexible, technology enhanced, extend within and beyond the school walls, color, space, engagement. Following that is what we've been referring to as a SALSA chart, basically a way to look at the facilities, okay? So not the level of education being provided, not the staff, not the students attending, but a way to look at the facilities in terms of that vision statement. And they use these colors to sort of look at that should be, should have, and desired outcomes. And I'll reference that a little bit more later. But some of the ideas that really go across the district about how facilities can help support that vision were safe and secure entrances. I think this is something that we all feel really strongly about at each of our schools. We need to have a safe and secure entrance. What does that mean? That means that any visitor to the school is going to need to move through the school office before having access into the full school. All of our schools have locked entrances that people need to be buzzed into to move through, and cameras that help us know who's out there. But this provides really that additional layer of security that we think is vitally important in our schools. And also looking across our district at collaborative spaces. How can we provide opportunities for students and for staff to work together? We know that that supports learning and it supports the opportunity for our schools to really be a community as well. So when we look at that SALSA chart, those grades of color, there you can see how all of our buildings across our district sort of fall out in terms of criteria being met. And across the top there are the different areas and categories. If you want to take a deeper dive into this, again, this is right on our district website. There's a master facilities plan page, so all the presentations are there if you don't want to go into board docs, and you can take a deeper dive into that information or ask any follow-up questions that you might have there. And again, today we are really here about Perry Elementary School, which was originally built in 1897. I do not know the story of why it says 1900 on the top and how that coincides, but it was originally built in 1897. It had additions made in 1954 and 1957. According to the district's facilities assessment, we are anticipating over the next 10 years, because again, this is a 10-year plan, $4.4 million in costs to really, again, that facilities assessment is about windows, heat, roofs, water, those sorts of things, not really looking again at that vision statement that we were talking about. So that base cost is at $4.4 million. And then that meeting the vision, if we were to do things like an enhanced secure entrance, accessibility throughout, restroom upgrades, collaborative and specialist spaces, you're looking at about another $3 to $6 million. And you can see that total cost of improvement over the next 10 years would be somewhere between that $7.5 to $11.1 million. These are really, really approximate figures at this time. There are other equity concerns. We know that we have smaller classrooms at Perry School, no cafeteria, our kitchen, limited access to all specialist spaces, things like that. that I just want to be clear aren't being addressed in these particular pieces. The facilities master plan team really looked at these different puzzle pieces as we discussed what we might do in terms of looking at that full district vision. And there you can see we're looking at Cal, Lincoln, Meehan, Everest, which is a secondary school, Perry, Seth, and Washington. We had conversations about an early childhood center, the possibility of a clinic. We have a clinic right now that's being served in the same building as our Everest school, and we wanted to have the opportunity to expand Everest. So we looked at potentially moving that clinic, again, Everest, and potentially a new welcome center. At this time, the board has been very clear that we do not want to take a look at that new welcome center, and at this point, we're not going to look at the clinic potentially being relocated to grow Everest here at central office, so we're going to explore some other options for that. That's not really a part of the conversation today, but I wanted to let you know that that's the initial feedback we've received from the board, so those pieces will be removed from these scenarios. Scenario C is our first scenario. This really looks at making just the very most basic levels of improvements to our sites, okay, and keeping Perry School online here. Scenario B looks at doing some of those improvements and also adding that new pre-K center. And scenario A looks at doing some of those improvements and adding that new pre-K center and taking Perry School offline. Okay, and you can see the dollar amounts associated with that. The facility design team looked at scenario A as the most preferable of those scenarios, with scenario B coming in second. Scenario 3 was a scenario that you didn't even see today because the team really eliminated that from consideration, and scenario C was the least preferred option. And this is in their individual feedback as well, and a summary of those scenarios. So specific to Perry, some of the questions that have been coming up, we put on our website again in a frequently asked questions area there. So if you go to that master facilities plan page, you can see that. Should Perry School close? It's really important to note we are going to be seeking feedback from the board. So I'm giving you the very best idea of what we anticipate should Perry School close, but we are going to be seeking board approval and input on all of these next steps. We would anticipate waiting a full year. We would anticipate allowing as much choice as possible for students and families currently served at Perry Elementary School to allow for a choice of the 4 in-town schools. If you have additional questions about that, again, that process is really laid out in our on our website in terms of how we might go through that so that we could be as equitable as possible in terms of determining how students would go to each of those different sites. Should Perry close again this school year, we would not offer K at Perry. Those students would attend at either Seth or Washington. And for the 2025-2026 school year, we would be looking at placing 128 students approximately. Boundaries would be decided by the board at an upcoming meeting. So once the new boundaries are established, all students living in that Perry attendance zone who are not currently enrolled in Perry would follow those new boundary designations. Again, that would be students that are not currently enrolled. Those students currently enrolled would have those options to pursue a path to the very best of our ability. Another question that we've gotten very regularly is here about the staff at Perry, who obviously we value very much and want to make sure they also have a path that is as secure as possible. All current staff would be retained in the district, and we would work over the course of next school year to help to ensure a smooth transition for that staff. All Perry staff would be placed prior to any internal or external hiring, and that includes all positions. There's 33 certified and non-certified staff at Perry School currently. Another concern is what happens to that Perry site. We would likely be looking at selling that property. We have already had some initial conversations about how we can work to ensure that that property doesn't become a blight, that we are responsible to the neighborhood, and we are responsible to the long history that Perry has. Questions have come up about the maintenance at Perry. I don't think that there's any doubt that Perry has a lot of maintenance and some specifically deferred maintenance that has happened across the school, but it's also happened across the district. That's part of the reason we're pursuing this master facilities plan, is there are a lot of facility needs across this district that need to be addressed. This is over the past year, total maintenance amount broken out by square footage at our elementaries. Here's some of the information about some of the specific work that's happened over the past year at Perry Elementary School. I'm not going to read through that list. And also a lot of questions about the roof at Perry. Perry, according to the district facility needs assessment, that roof is recommended for replacement in the 1 to 4 year range. We have done a repair at Central Middle School last October, and North and Lincoln this past summer, and Perry would be coming up here next. We also want to know what the future is of Perry as we look to make that level of an investment. That's the presentation. As you all know, we are here at Saturday, May 4th's hearing date, and we will have another hearing, public hearing, on Monday night at Perry Elementary School for anyone who would like to attend. Questions? Yes.
If the demographic study is not yet complete, why is Perry up for closure? If this is incomplete data, then why is there still the possibility that the school's going to get closed if you don't have all the information?
So we have completed the demographic study, but we will be revisiting it in those coming next 2 years. We know there are factors out there that need to be considered. It is my opinion that we need to look at making an investment in Perry or look at making other decisions regarding Perry, and waiting for 3 years is, I think, challenging for everybody involved. There's never going to be a time when you can say, okay, now we know for sure what the next 5 to 10 years are going to bring in terms of demographics. And I think a decision like this, we need to utilize the information that we have available to the very best of our ability. I recognize it's not perfect, and I recognize that the community is definitely experiencing some growth right now. Yes?
So if your plan is to close Perry School, what happens to those students and what schools will you be shifted to?
So if, do you want to pop that slide back up? If Perry School were to close, all current students at Perry School would have the opportunity to choose an in-town school, okay? We would identify how many spots were available at each one of those schools, and then we would work through essentially a lottery system to allow students and families to choose which of those schools they wanted to go to. Our building principals have been fantastic. Ms. Listowski at Seth, for example, has already, looked at, how can I rearrange this to accommodate as many Perry students as we possibly can. All of our building principals recognize that should Perry close, this is going to be really challenging for families and for students, and they want to make space at their school so that the students can attend their school of choice. So that would be the process that we would use. There would be the choice of the 4 schools. We will place as many students as we possibly can at their school of choice.
Another question. We only have 2 middle schools.
Correct.
So Perry right now is zoned for, the Belgrade North area. So if those families choose Meehan or Lincoln area, for the elementary school, and once they get to junior high, now they're going to be having to switch back over because of where they are located at.
Once the pathway is determined, that pathway will go through secondary. So there will be a one-time pathway choice. So if you are choosing to go to a school that feeds into North, you would continue in that pathway to North. If you're choosing a pathway that goes to BHS, you would continue in that pathway. Siblings would have the opportunity to follow siblings who are currently enrolled in the district. So if you have an older sibling who's currently on that pathway, we would prioritize that as well.
bus then? Would the district be providing busing for those children through middle school, high school, and their siblings?
They would be bused. We have spoken about that, and made sure, again, we recognize that this is a unique and challenging circumstance, and we wanna make this transition as smooth as possible. Again, this is for current Perry Elementary students. It would not continue after, boundaries have been redrawn. Yes.
So I have a daughter at Perry, she's 7, she'll be in 2nd grade next year. I also have a 1-year-old daughter who is clearly not yet enrolled. How do I get them on the same path if I choose a path for my 7-year-old that doesn't coincide with the new boundaries?
I think that's gonna be a challenge, and we're gonna have to work on that and work through that with you. I understand and recognize that, and that can be a challenge for, any number of families. We don't know how many children will follow, those siblings. Again, we will work when we're doing those placements to do the best we can to accommodate for that. We will know more, right? So if a decision is made to close Perry School, we will know, I would anticipate shortly thereafter, where those boundaries are gonna be drawn. The board would then approve that, so it would be certainly our hope that you will know exactly where those boundaries will be and what school you should select. Yes,
I understand that the very first steps of the facilities master plan began in November 2022, or October to November 2022, and then a selection process was given. At what points was it made public the possibility of the closure of Perry, and at what point was it announced to the parents for the first time?
I would have to go back and look at what that was. I wanna say probably January. Katie, do you know?
I don't have the top of my head.
We wanted to make that announcement to all of our Perry families. So I shared the information that, I understood was gonna be being shared at our master plan design meeting in terms of scenarios, and that the possible closure of Perry School was gonna be on that. At that time, we wanted to share that with the board, and then we wanted to share that with all of our families so that they would know that that was something that was gonna be discussed. I can go back and pull that date. I feel like January, mid-January was probably when it was.
So that being said, was it announced in the forefront that the facilities master plan would be coinciding with the closure, or was that announced after the fact?
The announcement was made that these were the options that were going to be considered. So that, I know I drafted that email myself, so I'm just trying to recall it to the best of my ability right now. I haven't looked at it in a number of months, but I know the way that we really phrased it at that point was the master facilities design team is gonna be looking at, I think at that time there were 4 scenarios that we were looking at. And in those scenarios, Perry Elementary School the future of Perry Elementary School is something that's gonna be discussed.
Why wasn't there a committee put together stating, you have numerous blocks of data showing your proposed master plan. Why wasn't one of those blocks what happens to Perry in the event that it closes?
So a committee
It-
sort of
I
like
feel like
between,
the name of the statistics is skewed. It should have been facilities and community master plan. We are part of the community.
absolutely.
What happens to our community and what kind of data can we provide?
I mean, I think that these are super fair points. I am of the opinion that there's never gonna be a really perfect way to walk through this process. We try to involve all of the schools, members of our community, administration in the process throughout. Because as we began this process, we didn't know what it was going to be. I mean, I think that that's a really fair statement. We did not know what it was gonna be, we did not know, what we would anticipate. I certainly wouldn't have been able to forecast what it was gonna look like at that point. The facilities long-range planning team, I mean, monthly did updates. We toured every school together. We really did try to do that due diligence of respecting each one of our schools and each one of those environments and trying to make sure that we were hearing from representatives of each one of those. Again, I don't think there's ever a perfect way to walk through this, and certainly we would take feedback on how we could have made some better choices along the way. And I think I had a question back here. Were you good?
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, the only thing I was going to, suggest or ask, we already have an issue when it comes to busing the current students. So how are we going to ensure that we're gonna have enough bus drivers, enough buses, so that parents don't have to drive their kids to work?
Yeah, we're gonna definitely need to work with First Student. Again, we've done some reach out to them already. They know we're having these conversations, and they know we will need to have a plan that will work to get our families to where they need to be. And again, should Perry close, we would be spending this next year making sure all of those transitions were as smooth as they possibly could be. So that is tasked upon us to do that and to make sure that we're executing with respect to the families and the students that we're serving. And then I saw here, I think,
Yeah, how did you guys go about bringing in community members?
we met with our facilities long-range planning team and worked to compile a list of people who would represent a variety of different parts of our community. We had everyone on that list, from the mayor to Parks and Rec, to the chamber, to Growth Dimensions, to retired staff, to,
There's 27 people, I think, on your.
there were 50 people, I want to say it was like 48, maybe some, very close to 50 people that were identified. When we had the meetings, not everyone came to any one of those individual meetings, so I think we had like 30-some people at most of those meetings. If I look at those slides, it has that. But we really, again, tried to capture a range of different community members. I do also attend a variety of different community meetings, and at each one of those community meetings, I said, we're looking at a facilities master plan. Please, if you have someone that you would like to have come and represent your business, your part of the community, please let us know, and we will do our very best to include them in the process.
So how many of those were Perry families that were on?
So we had, so each school had 2 representatives, a staff member representative and a parent representative. So Perry had a staff and a parent representative, the same as all of our other schools. Yes.
Is it too late to put in a form to talk?
No, absolutely not. You may, and they'll let you talk whenever. You do not need to worry about that. Yes.
Can I ask you to clarify the boundary piece again, just in terms of like, once new boundaries would be drawn, it would affect children district-wide then? Or just?
We are anticipating so I don't know what the result of the full master facilities plan, but in regards to Perry, we would really be looking at creating boundaries for our students who are currently attending Perry to determine where they would attend school. So it's a small, and if you go onto the district website, you can see where all of our Perry families are located. It's a relatively small area, and it'll really be about creating the boundaries for those families in terms of where they should attend. We would work with our demographer to create those lines. But even if you look at it, it's pretty clear where families are closer to one or the
My
other.
specific concern is I am a former Perry family.
Sure, absolutely.
My kids are other places in the district now, but Perry School in general is 1 block from where I live. So what I'm worried about, I think, just wanting clarification is will my daughter be able to graduate from the high school she's going to? Or will the new boundary move her high school to another high school, even though, because we live in the Perry district?
That's a great question. I don't, and thank you for
Okay.
putting that, and
Yeah.
I'm gonna put that out in the frequently asked questions page so
Thank
that we
you.
can get a really good answer to that. As I stand here today, I would say it is our absolute plan not to create more challenges and more difficulties in terms of those transition. So no, I do not anticipate that, but let me craft an answer to that and I'll get it out on our website.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Yes,
So this is my youngest last year at Perry. And so next year he's going to Central and my older one's going to North. When he's done with Central, by then, if they close Perry, there'll be a new boundary. Would he still be able to go to North?
yes, he is gonna follow that
Because
path.
we live also right next to Perry.
His
Right.
sibling is gonna follow sibling and he will be able to follow that path, yes. Yes, yes,
We've had this situation at Perry where like the class size gets too big, we have maybe 4 or 5
Yeah.
overflow, we can't copy the section.
Yeah.
But then those like 4 or 5 kids have to go somewhere else. So if we have a student, like say one of my first graders signs up to go to Seth or wherever, and they have a section that is overflowed by like 3 or something like that, who takes precedence there? Would the Perry student that chose that school get to stay, and the Seth family have to leave, or vice versa?
so I'm not sure I'm with you all the way. I thought I was, but then I lost you there at the last point. So,
If the section gets
yeah.
too large, and it's not enough to have another teacher,
are you talking about for next school year?
or whenever a students leave, and you're saying that they can make a choice of which school they go to.
Correct.
Like, if there's a situation like that, are we going to open up another section to accommodate some, like, just a few students where typically we wouldn't do
Yeah,
that?
that's a good question. I'm not sure
I mean, I
the
think that
answer
would
to
be a
that.
fair question for
Yeah.
not only the Perry students, but the students that
Yeah.
are attending that
Yeah.
school.
I'm not sure the answer to that. I'm still not quite sure I
And I don't
completely understand
so
what
I'm
you're
just asking
what
for
you're
the-
saying, but will you send me a follow-up email and then I can get that answer to you? Yes,
I think it was actually made pretty clear in previous meetings, this has been discussed before, and it all culminated in sounding like you and the board saying, you get to pick what school you want until it's full, and then you're going to Washington.
and that, I mean, I think that is accurate. Our hope is to place as many students as we possibly can at a school of choice, to the very best of our ability. And again, that process is outlined there for you. Our principals are very, very interested in making this transition as smooth as possible and welcoming our Perry students to other schools and their schools of choice whenever possible. I can't tonight or this morning guarantee that I'm gonna have a spot there. But I will tell you that we typically overflow in any particular year to different sites and different locations. We will prioritize this group of students before we make any of those other choices. I can't make you a promise that you have a seat at Seth Whitman and so does every other child, and I'm just throwing Seth Whitman out. But I can tell you that our principals are gonna work really hard to get every Perry student at the school they wanna be at. That's all I can tell you. I can't make you a promise, but I do promise you we're gonna work really hard. Yes,
If Perry closes, what's the, how close to capacity are we at the other elementaries? And then where are we busting at the seams? Like, where's the next construction?
good question. So we have, so in our overall facilities master plan study, and this might be another thing to put up on that frequently asked questions page, they have done a capacity study of each one of our sites. So we know we have capacity at various sites to accommodate a variety of different students. So I don't want to give you a number off the top of my head, but I want to say that there's considerable capacity across the board. Some of our schools like Caledonia and Washington School, for example, have more capacity than a school like Seth Whitman that has less capacity. Again, that being said, I know at Seth Whitman, they're looking at how they can reorganize some of those pieces to accommodate some of our Perry students. Yes,
Regarding busing, I understand that the possibility of cost increase could be nominal. have there been any studies? Have there been any meetings? Has there been any data showing exactly how many dollars will be spent towards busing? Or was it just assumed that the amount should be small?
Well, I don't think we're working on assumptions, so I don't wanna say that. I mean, I think we have a lot of data about busing in the school district, and we currently run routes, for Perry students, so currently we are busing students, to different sites from Perry, for example, especially for our dual language program, and students, in special ed. So yes, there will be some cost in terms of adding additional students to those bus routes, but the number of routes that are added should be a small amount overall.
Will that data be added publicly to the board website?
I think we can probably pull something, yep.
Yeah, I mean, it's gonna be hard to cost determine until we know where students would be going. Because our route is very different if it's going from Perry to Seth Whitman versus me, and they're all considered in town, but there's some different distances and how many kids we're putting on a bus route. So, you know, what size bus are we running? And that's where it's a little difficult for us to, you know, give, this is what it's going to cost until we start doing some of that placement. But I can definitely add some additional context of what a normal route would typically cost. And like Dr. Shuggan said, we already have a couple routes that are running, so it would just be, that bus is already going. We would be adding more kids to it, so it isn't necessarily an increased cost. Sorry, I wanted to make sure I could still see you.
I'm sorry, that was me.
That, you know, it isn't necessarily a significant add in cost because a bus is already going. It just depends on where is that bus going, and that we don't, I hate to say it this way, we don't pay transportation by pupil riding the bus. It's if the route runs, so,
I understand. Thank you.
that's where we came from that assumption.
Thank you.
And I do want to just say, I think Mrs. Brenner is taking some notes. If I promised you a frequently asked question, and please feel free to send me an email so that I make sure that we don't miss anybody on those, because I am not taking any notes as I'm trying to engage with all of you. Yes, go ahead.
So I just have a question on staff choice.
Yes.
What does the union, or how does the staff union work in terms of them being able to choose where they go if their school is now Perry and they have to go work in another location?
All right, I'm gonna do my best job here. I have the union president and vice president sitting right behind you. So we are going to, what we will do is begin by placing, oh, and I also have my HR director here. So we are gonna begin by placing everyone at Perry, so every staff member at Perry, before we do any internal or external hiring. So we will be doing, again, our best to honor whatever choices there are. We will employ everyone, so should there be a position that, you know, I teach third grade, we've already hired everybody we need, I'm looking for something that's more similar, we will work with individual staff to find a placement that's most appropriate for those individuals. Dr. Ady?
That's pretty much it, and then there would also be seniority included in that for the Perry staff. The most senior would have the first choice and so forth. We would work with them. Wendy and I would work together, and so we would make sure that everybody, you know, gets hopefully the choice they want. But that's how it would work.
And Wendy is our president. That sound?
No, I mean, that's exactly what we've discussed so far, but we haven't gotten into depth because we don't know which way it's gonna go, but no matter what direction it goes, it'll be very protected.
Melissa?
I think, I would like, next year we have to hire a full-time secretary at Perry.
Yeah.
That's a job that does not come up open often. Most of those women are lifers and they retire, right? So like, we're gonna have to hire somebody, and the chances are there won't be another secretary within the district position open for that person. So would they have to move to like, say, a paraprofessional or something like that? Like, how would that be accommodated?
We're gonna work with Katie on how we're gonna hire that, what that's gonna look like, and again, making sure that the pathway makes sense. So, I mean, that's what we're gonna do with everything, is do our very best to respect the people we have in place. Our highest priority, I wanna be really clear as well, is to our current students and to our current staff. So people who are hired next year, we might, look at a one-year hire or something like that. Our highest priority is to who we have right now, okay? But our second highest priority is making sure that everything is gonna continue to operate smoothly, and that should Perry be closing, that next year be a year that we can really, have a year to celebrate, the school and all the great things that have happened there over the long, long history of it. Yes.
Should Perry close, will there be a study done, or is there a possibility of a study being done to show the effects of what occurred within the community in the aftermath, so that we can learn from our mistakes?
I think we will absolutely need to do that. I think I shared with you last time, I've had the opportunity to reach out to staff who were at Kishwaukee when Kishwaukee was closed, and we have gotten, I think, some really excellent feedback from them about what we could avoid and what we could do better. I would certainly anticipate we'll do the same.
Yes, was a study done on the Kishwaukee after its closure?
A study was not done on Kishwaukee after its closure, but at this time, we have reached out to people. We've gotten a lot of feedback about what went well, and there were some things that went really well, and what did not go well at all, and how we can learn. I think one of the big things that has come back to us is, the need for transparency and openness, and we've really, really, really tried. I know that there's not, a perfect way to do this, and I know that there's a lot of emotion around this, and we're really trying to provide the space for that and listen openly and be open about where we are and what our thinking is. All right. One more?
When is the final vote?
I anticipate that the board will vote on this in May. I anticipate that we will do a special board meeting before the regular board meeting itself. So what I have discussed with the board president and vice president at this time is having a special board meeting at our regular board meeting time in May at 5:30 to specifically address Perry, and then close that meeting so anyone who is in attendance will have the opportunity to speak. The board will vote, people will hear what that vote is, and then we will move on to the regular board meeting, so people aren't forced to sit and wait during the course of an entire meeting. That has not been finalized at this point, but after our public hearing on Monday night, I would anticipate talking more with my board president and vice president and finalizing what those next steps would look like. And if May is the time, and if that's the process we're gonna use. Yes?
Question, so Kale would not be an option for Perry?
We are really, because the busing is harder out to Cal, we are really looking at those in-town schools at this time. All right, I'm gonna move, I know many of you have things to say, and I wanna give you the time to say those things. If you have a question that didn't get answered, please email me. You can go onto that master facilities plan page, and my email is right there. You can email me and the board. If you email the board email, it goes to me as well. But I will respond to any other questions you have. And again, if you don't see your frequently asked question get up on our list, please just send me a gentle reminder, and I will make sure that we get that taken care of. Okay? I'm gonna turn it over for public comments.
All right, next agenda item, public comment. At this time, members of the public and employees of District 100 may make public comments. As a reminder, any person appearing before the board is expected to address the board only at the appropriate time and follow the directives of the board president to maintain order and decorum. Identify oneself, limit your comments to 3 minutes, and conduct oneself with respect and civility towards others, and otherwise abide by board policy 8:30, visitors to and conduct on school property. First at this time, I have Dan Snow, if you would come forward.
Good morning. My name is Dan Snow. I live at 409 West Jackson Street. I also happen to be Ward 2 Alderman, which encompasses most of the Perry School area. First off, I'd like to say that as a taxing body, you guys get about 68% of the homeowner's tax on their property. That being said, great consideration should be given to the local people that supply children to that school. From everything I've heard, the cost savings for this closing Perry is very minimal in the overall scheme of things. There's the cost of doing business. No matter what you do, you're going to have maintenance. I hear about the roof. Every building needs roof work done periodically for maintenance and for replacement. So that's not a valid point. As far as if cost savings go as well, you're going to shift all the staff to all the other schools. There's no savings there. You still have X number of dollars in payroll, which I realize the school district, like most entities and every business in the world, most of your cost is in payroll. I have not heard anything positive about closing Perry. I've heard only negative things regarding the closure of Perry. My understanding is the kids thrive at Perry. There's nobody who has any ill words other than, oh, look, it's an old school. But every school becomes old at some point. And I surely hope that at some point closing Perry doesn't open the door for to build another facility, because we got rid of that one so somebody can build a resume, whether it's professional or political. And then the cost of the busing and that seems like it's going to be a long-term deal, because at this point it sounds like you're looking at an 8-year program. Because if you got somebody going into first grade, now you've got to supply them with backing behind siblings and everyone else, so they all go to the same elementary, middle school, and high school. So I don't see any upside to any of this, and I hope you really consider the community's input that closing this facility is not a great idea. And again, every building has maintenance issues. You're going to have to keep the building up no matter where it is. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next at this time, I have Mike speak. If you would come forward, please. State your name and address the board.
Good morning. I'm Mike Speak. I am a parent. My daughter goes to Perry Elementary. Forgive me, I don't have anything prepared like I did last time, so I'm hoping to just speak from the heart. It seems like, as I said in comments, that the statistics are skewed because there is no data available for what happens to the community. It seems like it seems like the parents could have had more involvement. We are most definitely paying attention now. I think we were all sidelines by the idea that our school could be closed. When the facilities master plan came out, you're absolutely right. I saw it right on Parent Square. It was there. I wasn't paying attention. All of us are paying attention now, and I feel like now it's almost become too late. That you've made up your minds already. But please keep in mind that it's not just regarding a facility. We are the facility. We are the community. What happens to us? I hope you consider that information. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next, Jillian Bragg, if you would come forward, state your name and address the board.
Hi, my name is Jillian Bragg. I am a senior at Belvedere High School. I went to Perry. I was a student at Kishwaukee when it closed. I was one of the students that did not get into Meehan because it was full. So I had to go to Washington. That was the worst 2 months of my life. That was the most traumatizing experience I ever went through. Until my dad stuck up for me and I got moved to Perry. That was the most welcoming school I've ever been to. I went there from 2nd grade to 5th grade. Best years of my life. They made me who I am. The respectful teachers, the community around there, just the people there, they made me who I am. I would not be who I am without Perry Elementary. We already closed Kishwaukee. We've already seen what it's done to students. I was one of those students. I need to speak for these kids. No one should be going through that again. What I went through, was crazy. I was treated horribly at Washington, and I don't want anyone to go through that again. Because we don't have room for these kids, really. We don't. We didn't have room for it when Kishwaukee closed. All my friends went to Meehan. I got stuck at Washington. Everybody gets split up. And then to not even do that, I went to Perry, and I ended up going to Belvedere High School. So I went to Belvedere South Middle School, while all my friends went to Belvedere Central. I'm still in touch with all my friends. I still talk to them. It's still the same community. It's just, these students need someone to stick up for them, because I went through this, and I can't see other kids go through this. You don't know what it does to a kid when you get stuck to a new school and it's not welcoming. You don't feel welcome, or you're forced to move. My sister was lucky. She was a 5th grader at Kishwaukee. She got to leave and go to middle school when it closed. I was unfortunate. I was in 1st grade. I went 2 months at Washington, contracted head lice. It was a big problem. They did not do anything about it because they were like, whatever. My dad was like, you have a head lice problem, maybe address it. And they were like, that's not our problem. And so my dad was like, maybe we should move schools. And they're like, here's a list of schools you can go to. They didn't want me. So I went to Perry, and they wanted me. Teachers knew me by my name. Principal, administrators, secretaries, they knew me by my name. It was the best school I could have gone to. And I'm really happy this school is a thing. It is a great community, and just keep up with the maintenance. It's not that hard. I looked at the prices. It was probably the cheapest school up there, not gonna lie. So that's it.
Thank you. Next, Melissa Williams, if you would come forward, state your name and approach the podium.
Hi, I am Melissa. I stand here today as a school district community member. The reason I wanted to come up here today was just to kind of give a little reminder. About 4 years ago, I actually considered running for the board just because I like to talk, I like to be involved in the community, I have a lot of kids, and I moved here, it was 10 years ago that I moved here, so 15 years ago. Anyways, though, so to me, a seat on the board is a seat for this community. It is not a seat for yourself. It is not for your mission or your goal. It is, what does the community of Belvedere want? And sometimes what the community wants isn't always what is best, or isn't always what is feasible, like the pool. I know this because my husband worked for the park district. It was not an option to keep the pool, right? It physically could not happen, and they went through that, and it was terrible. When Kish closed, it was not an option. They said one school has to go, period. Looking at this master plan, there is an option to keep Perry alive, and it is overwhelmingly supporting to keep Perry alive. I mean, so as a board member, and I hope that you would consider first and foremost what the community is saying, which is, while it may be taxing, while it may be difficult, you keep it alive, invest in it, make it work, do the work, do what's hard, but do what's right for the community. Please? Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Megan Speak. If you would come forward, state your name to address the board.
Hi, my name is Megan Speak. I am a Perry parent, and I want to first and foremost speak to the student that was just up here and say, my daughter is in 1st grade right now. And to hear your testimony, I was crying in my seat thinking about my daughter in your position, and I'm so sorry you had to go through that. Also, going off of what Melissa was just saying about the community, I don't know if anyone has seen it or mentioned it. Somebody, I'm not sure who, started a petition on change.org to save Perry School. That's up well over 1,000 signatures right now. And then I wanted to talk about the strategic planning meetings, because this is the one thing that's really been bothering me. Is I can't speak for everybody, but I feel like I wasn't informed enough about these meetings before they happened. And so I went and I scrolled as far back in Parent Square as I possibly can this morning. And I found a message from November 10th of 2022 that reads, if you're interested in volunteering for our strategic planning team, our volunteer form is open. Over the next 4 to 5 months, a team of school board members, staff, parents, students, and community members will develop District 100's strategic plan. This plan will include the mission, vision, and long-term goals that will guide the district over the next 3 to 5 years. I don't know, as just a regular parent, what a strategic plan means. And in no way were we informed before the fact that the possibility of Perry closing was part of those meetings, based on your messages to us. So I don't know, like somebody else said, maybe we weren't there before, but we're here now. That's all. Thank you.
If there's anybody further at this time that wishes to address the board, please go to the podium and state your name.
Hi.
Good morning.
My name is Sally Stegman. I've lived in Belvedere all my life. I was a student at Perry School from 1954 until 1961. I graduated from Belvedere High School. I became the secretary at Perry School beginning in the fall of 1984. I was there for 18 years. Katie was one of our students. I remember her mom registering her. But anyway, I also wanted to address the young lady. That's one thing about Perry School. When I worked there, I knew every kid by name. And that's what a lot of these kids in that area need. I visited a week ago, and Patty Fuller, the secretary there, 3 little boys came in. She called each of them by name. After I worked at Perry School, I went to Central Middle School. I knew the kids that were in trouble. I knew the kids that came to the nurse's office. And the rest of the kids, I knew names. I didn't know faces. And that's one thing about Perry School, that these kids, they're there. The last thing I want to say is, I don't know if I have time. One year, we had an overflow of kindergarten students. What happened was we ended up busing a classroom of kindergarten students to Washington School. And I'm glad to hear that all the principals are on board with welcoming these students, because on more than one occasion it was made. We were always told, these aren't our students. And I don't want kids to have to go through that, to be the outsiders. And so through the years, when Perry School wanted a playground, we were told, yeah, you can get a playground, but you have to raise the money, you have to build the playground. Our principal, Steve Lennon, the teachers, the parents fundraised, we did it. The next thing, and I'm not sure if it was playground or computer lab first, the computer lab, yeah, you can have a computer lab, you need to pay for it, you need to build it. The teachers, the principal, the parents did it. So I just, one funny thing is that one time when Caledonia School was built, we got to go pick, I didn't, the principal did, got to pick the old desks, the old chalkboards. They got all new. And so it's just like when the new schools were built, we had to do our own. We had an intercom. And one day I said, why does that intercom keep buzzing when we turn it off? It's because it has tubes. It was put in 1950s when I was there. We got the old intercom from Lincoln School when they built the new Lincoln School. So that's how we got our intercom system. And I guess that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you so much. If there's anybody further, again, please come to the podium at this time and state your name if you wish to address the board.
I actually had a couple.
We've got one coming first, if that's okay. Thank you.
Sorry.
You're good.
My name's Lisa Cortez. I don't live in the Perry district, but I have a small baby who's going to be attending the District 100 school. And I just wanted to find out what everything was going to be about. How would this potentially affect my daughter? And I was very moved by the young lady here and just everyone's kind of outcry for the positivity of what Perry School delivers. And I think that in this day and age, with a lot of our children having mental health issues or behavioral health issues, that they might not receive that support that they need at home, but it sounds like Perry Elementary School was that support. And if that doesn't scream to you that this is what our children's need, that our kids need, then maybe you guys aren't really looking at the big picture here. Because if we're not taking care of our kids for the future and giving them this emotional support that they need, where are our kids gonna wind up? And with everything that you hear nowadays in the news and just all around the world, I mean, our kids are our future, and I would want to make sure that we do everything as parents, as a community, to come together for our kids and provide them the care that they need. And it sounds like Perry does that for these kids.
Lisa, I'm sorry, could you spell your last name for me?
Cortez.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much. Again, if there's anyone further that would wish to address the board, please come to the podium at this time and state your name.
Forgive me, it's a little unorthodox. I had two questions. First to Dr. Shug. I know I sent a message to everyone on the board regarding my 50 questions and my plea. Do I have your permission, Dr. Shug, to make those the answers public?
Certainly, when I send out an email, you can absolutely do that. Again, I tried to take, Mike, some of your comments and add them into that frequently asked questions list. I would say I responded to that email, and I think I've got a little bit more information that is now captured there. So I think that's probably the best place to send people. But
Okay.
absolutely, I sent you an email. You can
Understood.
absolutely share
Yeah,
that however you
I was
see
hoping
fit.
with your permission to share with family and friends the response.
You certainly may do so, yes.
Thank you. My second is board members. Do I have permission to address the public?
You're able to right now through open comment, but it's your speaking at this point, and they would be listeners of that. But then if there's certain questions in dialogue, we can most definitely answer those.
Understood. I will keep it very short. This is to the public in general.
Just a quick question. What are we gonna answer later? I'm missing something here.
If he has questions, we will answer those. I am not responding to his questions right
Yeah.
now.
So if he asks questions, we can respond later. Okay.
Absolutely, and
I just wanted to-
I'm sure.
I know we were talking.
Right, just because we didn't put a discussion agenda item on
That's
today.
I'm sure it'll be chock full of questions with my next email, with my next phone call. This is more of a statement to the public, if that's all right. There are 1,000 signatures in favor of keeping the school open. There are 50 people who participated in a study on why our school should or shouldn't stay open. There are 7 people who hold the fate of our school in their hands. I implore you as the public to please speak with these 7 people. They need to hear what we have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mike. If there's anybody further that wishes to address the board, please come forward at this time, state your name. Okay. Hearing none further,
Can I speak? I'm allowed to speak, right?
we didn't put an agenda
We
item
do
on
not
for
have a
discussion.
board discussion.
But I can respond to some of the people who have spoken, correct?
Right now, we are really hearing from the public. There will be an opportunity for
But-
board
but-
discussion.
But when does that happen?
When's that gonna happen?
These
So-
people deserve to hear our thoughts, because I've heard like 5 times today, at least. And we hear it in the emails that we get from them, that they say, the board, why are you doing this, board? It's not the whole board doing this. I've stated my thoughts on it, But they don't realize that we didn't get this big discussion time on this.
Should we?
This showed up, no, I mean, it's not fair to say that the 7 members of the board had all the information and were given this. We were given an email before the meeting at the library at the other school, and in that email was the discussion of the closure of Perry, right? And you said that at the meeting, that went out, and that doesn't mean we're gonna close Perry, but it really did, right? And we should have the opportunity to give our input back to them so they know, right?
So
Because
procedurally, do we have an option to add discussion? And if we don't have an option to add discussion, perhaps when will that opportunity?
Yeah.
I guess that's what we need to answer before we start speaking out of order here.
Well, it's not unprecedented, we've done that.
But again, just,
Let 'em talk, fine.
again,
And then, Tom, I'm gonna make sure on Monday we add a formal agenda item so we can have discussion. Go ahead. Go ahead. No, go. I'm saying, I'm gonna do it also on Monday to make sure we can after the next hearing. I think that's very important to your point. But still continue.
I have a mouthful. I feel a bit like the Perry people as a board member, that this came about in a way that I don't think is necessarily correct, and it's one of the things I've talked about with the board several times of how we do things. I believe it's a process issue. The board, us, we are here to represent you, the 7 people, and the taxpayers and everybody else. And every portion of those stakeholders deserves a say. When we make a committee, like the Facilities and Long Range Planning Committee, their goal, by definition, is to gather information, bring it to the 7 members of the board, and then we give input that provides direction for that, okay? I don't believe that's how this has happened here. In fact, I know that's not how it's really gone. They had a committee, and it's just fundamentally doesn't make sense to me how they came to these conclusions or their scenarios, because we never really had input on that. A couple members did, because they were on that committee, but we weren't all as a whole, okay?
Can I interrupt? I thought you were on the original list of committee.
I was taken off. I originally
have
was
to say
on,
that
and then
you
I
were
was taken
listed
off,
as a
and I said,
committee member.
I'll do whatever you guys say. That is what I said,
Okay.
correct?
Wait, who took you off?
I believe Sarah had mentioned to me who was gonna be on the committees. I was originally on the facilities committee, and then they said,
No,
oh,
not the facilities committee, the.
Master
The
plan.
master plan committee, you were originally on that.
no, it's the facilities committee.
No, you were originally on the
Your
master
name
plan
is on
committee.
the other.
But you were never at any of the meetings, but you were originally on that.
I wasn't aware I was even on it. I thought I was on the facilities committee.
No, you're on the
it's the
master.
facilities master plan team.
That's what I'm talking about, the facilities and.
No,
master
there's a
plan.
No,
facilities.
the facilities and long range committee, which is a standing committee,
And-
and then the master plan. committee.
Anyway,
You were on the master
the
plan committee.
point being, that committee is supposed to bring that information to us, you know, so we can then make our decisions about it, okay? We provide the direction to the administration. Here, it appears to me that there was somewhat of a presentation, sales pitch or whatever, and it's in no way a bad reflection of Larson and Darby. That's their role. Their role is to build things and to do things, and they make a presentation to the committee, and they came up with these scenarios. We learned at the library thing that kind of how they started that was we want you not to think about costs and think about pie in the sky. This is what, you know, we want. To me, as a board member, being fiscally responsible for the taxpayers is not how I would go about that process. It just isn't. So that's not their fault, but it's also not how I think that should be done. To me, it appears like we never got a legitimate, what I would call option D, which is an option that realistically keeps Perry open, addresses the needs of the district, which we heard about were Everest, the clinic, early education, and building needs, okay? There should be a way we can keep Perry open, because I haven't heard any really good reasons why we should close Perry, other than it's been neglected over the course of time, and that's not the fault of the Perry school people or their administration or the taxpayers. So I think that's a bad reason to do it. But before my time on the board, things It sounds like that's been happening long before that. To me, it has the appearance that we want to close that school, so we move those kids other places. It's going to create new guidelines that have to be drawn, new boundaries that have to be drawn. It's going to fill up those other schools, which then creates the need to have to build a new early education center to the tune of $20 or $30 million. We don't know what that is. We don't have to do that at this time. Maybe that's something we want to do down the road. I am a believer in the early education program. A year ago, we voted to hire Ms. Bauman. I voted for that. I voted to pay her more than we originally wanted to. I voted to expand that program because I think that's important to the district, right? I'm a supporter of it. I'm not a supporter when, at this time, we're not in as good of a financial situation to take on a massive project. It sounds like, from what I've been told and understand, 4 or 5 years from now, we're in a better place to do that. I also think since we just started this and expanded it, why don't we focus on doing things, walking before we run, and making that better and buttoned up. And then 5 years from now, when we're in a better situation to do that, then we look at having this early education center, this big spend or whatever, and then we're in a better position to do so. I'm not even against it. It's just, it doesn't seem like it's the time for it now. I have a concern that we have multiple studies, the one for this, and then we have our special ed study, and there's this big gray area of tens of millions of dollars here that's not really defined about spaces for people. The special ed review said our spaces are great, right? They said we do a great job with our facilities, yet the other one has an ask for tens of millions of dollars to improve those spaces. That's a conflict. Well, one is, beneficial to them because they do building, so that's what they're always probably going to recommend. The other one is more objective in my mind, and they say the spaces are good, then maybe we don't need to do that. I think there's a huge gray area in there that I don't quite think is accounted for. I grew up in Milwaukee. I'll give you just a quick story. They went through this on a massive scale. They created a school called South Division, and they closed some schools, and they created a state-of-the-art school, cost hundreds of millions of dollars, and you can look it up years ago, South Division. They had the top of everything, space, athletic facilities, computers, all of this. Then they decided they wanted to build 2 more for hundreds of millions of dollars more. A guy named Mark Ballion has a radio show up there. He and the taxpayers there came up with a thing. They independently brought in a study to see, is this beneficial to make 2 more of these mega schools, new schools? And they did a study, and to me, I think it kind of tells the story of Perry. They went and tested all the schools, checked everything out from an independent company. They came back, and what do you think was the best school, doing the best, and the kids were achieving? It was a school called Marshall at the time. It was the oldest school in the entire Milwaukee school district, and the kids were thriving. The school that came in lowest out of all those schools was South Division. The campaign was called Books, Not Bricks. I just use it as an example that building new buildings, and someone referenced it, I hope that's not the case. I mean, putting a stamp on your resume that you did something like that is great, but isn't it the outcome that really matters? And we already know that Perry is thriving and doing well, and these kids are doing well. I don't see, this isn't a financially driven thing. We can afford to bring it back up. Maybe it looks on paper like it doesn't make sense because it's been neglected, but the reality is you can't punish half of those dollars for past wrongs. So I ask, not everybody on the board feels like this is a good idea. I think the people that don't think that it is a good idea, and the reason we're here and having these 3 votes is because clearly 4 people do, they should have to tell you why. I mean, I think it's crazy that we come up here and nobody says anything. And maybe I'm out of turn here, but it doesn't make any sense to me. Make it make sense to me, and then I might be for it, but I have not heard one thing that makes it make sense. I think we should have an option D that realistically keeps Perry open. I think we can expand our early childhood without creating a new building and walk before we run, and don't hear things like, well, we're going to build the plane as we fly it, right? Let's do it right, do it well. And I'm not in support of any of these things talked about. I'm just in support. It doesn't make sense in the process, and certainly not closing a school that's thriving and doing well. I just feel like that has to be, I have to get my voice out there.
Thank you.
Very well said. All right, so we'll add a formal agenda item on Monday to make sure we can have board discussion. Can we revise the agenda?
I'll have to see if Ms. Sessions is available to make that update today, but I would anticipate we can get that out and repost
All
it.
of us can add to that discussion. And
Correct,
Great.
yes.
And I'd like to do it, at the end if we could, after we hear visitors.
Yep, absolutely, we can do that.
So I just have one question, and it's not a statement about anything that's going on, it's more of a procedural question. The 3 hearings, the 2 we've already had and the one we will have on Monday, are mandated if you're going to close the school, right? That we have to have, right? Do we have to have all 3 hearings if it's no longer on the table? Are there still 4 board members that are leaning in that direction, I guess is my question. If, I don't know, I don't know how everybody feels, and maybe people aren't ready to say what their position is, but if we don't still have 4 board members that are thinking it's more likely than not that I'm gonna vote to close Perry, then do we even need to have a hearing on Monday? I guess I'm just wondering, we keep talking about not keeping people hanging and not making them wait and not stringing it out. And I understand if it's still a possibility that there's 4 board members or more that are leaning in that direction, then obviously we have to have the hearing on Monday. But there just hasn't really been any discussion, even at the board level, about kind of where, Tom says he's a no to close Perry. I've said all along, and I've continued to receive information, and I am appreciative of that, and answers and questions and things that have come out, and additional information. I'm still a no to close Perry, for all the reasons I've already said, and I'm not gonna go into those right now. Are there still 4 board members that are leaning in that direction that would require that we have the hearing on Monday? Or do we have the ability to say, look, we don't have 4 people who are gonna vote that direction?
I think there are still people who haven't made up their mind.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say, I don't think it's a foregone conclusion. And I think there's still opportunity for board members to do their due diligence, do their research, tour Perry, tour the other elementary schools, talk to the administrators and teachers at all these different schools, get a better sense of what we're dealing with. Because it's a big decision, a very big decision that we have to deal with. And I'm still doing my research. And I had an opportunity to go to Perry. I had a very great experience there. I had opportunities to tour the other elementary schools, every single one of the in-town elementary schools. I'm still doing my research, folks. This is a tough decision. I'm not going to lie. Probably the toughest one I've ever wanted to make here in the school district. But again, it's making sure I have all the information, making sure I'm hearing different perspectives from different groups so that I can assess what I feel is going to be the best outcome for our students, teachers, community. And that still requires some more due diligence, that still requires some more research. And yes, I'm not there.
Okay, that's fair. Can I ask if there are board members that are not there, and that's fair. If you're not there, you're not there. That's completely acceptable. And it doesn't, that's not a bad thing. I'm not saying that. But are there things that the community, that the teachers and staff, are there things that you're not hearing from them yet that you would say, look, here's more information we need? Like, we're getting statistical data, and that's great. That's very valuable information. But is there anything, are there questions we have of them, that information we need to hear from them, if there's all this way, and that's fair, it's a very, you're right, it's a very important decision, but are there things we're asking them to provide? Is there data or statistics or information or stories, or are there things that we would say, please come Monday prepared to share, that the board still wants to hear? I don't know, I just.
Well, I can tell you there's probably more information that I'm going to be seeking from the administration.
I think it's a fair question, though. I think that's why I think the discussion's important on Monday. this is a monumental decision for everybody, including you guys and us. Jorge, Mr. Herrera is right. I think it'll probably be the biggest decision we make on the board, at least in the three plus years I've been on the board. For some of them, it's been way longer than that, and they may rate it as in the same way. I think that's why I think the discussion's valuable, because I think you need to know where we stand. You need to know why we stand there, and you need to know what it would take to get us to move one way or the other, if there's anything. There may be nothing, but I think you need to know that, because there's a gap of 2 weeks in between May 6th and May 20th, that everybody has the opportunity to have their voice heard, either side. Everybody has a chance to say what they want to say, and everybody has their chance to move the needle either way, so to speak. But I think it's important that as representatives, us as representatives to you and thousands of other people, that you know where we're coming from, you know where we're standing, you know how we made our decision. Because I think that's what you elected us for. So I think that's why it's so important to have that. And up until now, and I'm glad we're having it Monday, by the way, I really am. But I mean, up until now, we haven't had any kind of we could have gone through this meeting today and listened to you guys, and that's it.
There would have been nothing.
There would have been nothing.
Well, and we got to talk at the last meeting, and I think that was good value, right?
And at the
Like
town hall
same thing, right, like after, and then being able to process
Two
it,
meetings.
so.
I don't remember talking at the last meeting, but
You might not have, but
I
there was an agenda.
I don't even remember having the
At
opportunity.
10 o'clock at night, when there's 2 people left, it's not
And
the
at the
time.
town hall meeting as well. So, and if you want to talk, go ahead and talk, Tom did.
No, I think it's appropriate to, as long as we've got it on the
Yeah,
agenda for
we're gonna
Monday,
work on
I'm fine with that.
We're gonna work on it.
I just wanted to make sure we had at least an opportunity to do that, and they had an opportunity to be able to listen to that.
Well, the reality is, and I appreciate the effort and the energy to do that, but I think we also have to be candid about the fact that we have a public meeting that's subject to OMA, and we only have, a limited amount of time. So we have to be realistic about being able to change the agenda. Hopefully that can happen, but if not, can we do research about making a same-day amendment to the agenda?
We
if
can
need
do
to?
it today. We will
The board
adjust
can
it today.
discuss anything anytime.
You're
We
not
just
voting
can't-
on
we're
it,
not
so you're
voting
gonna-
on it.
Yes.
So you're not
Okay.
subject
Okay.
to that.
Well, we're
Okay.
up
She
to
can always add a discussion.
We're before 48 hours anyway.
Yeah.
Right,
I mean,
right,
we're
but
well
it's
within
a
48
weekend,
hours.
and people are off, and,
In 48 hours.
But
yeah,
it's
I
not
know,
today.
but people are off, and
It's not a work problem, so.
Okay.
Yeah, you can discuss anything anytime. And then if people have more to say today, they certainly can.
Yeah, and I would encourage that. I would encourage the public to say, if you have more to say, please continue to reach out to the board. Thoughts, concerns, ideas, alternatives, whatever it may be, continue to send those. It's important. We still, as I mentioned before, I'm still getting feedback. And that would be helpful as well.
Yeah, and I said that last month, as well. I mean, please, there's a lot of people out there that don't feel comfortable coming to the meetings and speaking. So we need to hear from those people as well. I know some are listening. I mean, it's important. I know Jillian, I was at Kishwaukee when she was there. I was at Kishwaukee when it closed. My daughter, went to another school too. We do understand a lot of those things. So, I mean, I do want to hear what you have to say. So please contact me, call me. I know a lot of you out there right now, you have my phone number. Use it.
I will say one thing and address a question you did ask or did bring up, is that I think Mr. Bucher did talk about it though, is that I told this to somebody asked me a question about this today, so that's why it's fresh in my memory, is that a person called me up, was a teacher in the district, teacher worked at Perry, called me up and said, we have a meeting scheduled with Dr. Shug. This is mid-end of March, some middle end of March. Do you know anything about that? Is there anything are they trying to learn how to speak? Are they talking about closing Perry or whatever? No, never heard a word about it. I had no knowledge of that, which is the truth. I had absolutely no knowledge of that at all.
I just have to say that is not accurate, Matt.
That is accurate.
We already talked about this, we looked at that timeline, and I just have to say that I did inform the board before I met with the Perry staff.
She did. That is correct.
I absolutely did.
That is
And you might
correct.
not have known at that particular time, and I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, I just
Oh,
want
we
to
did
clarify.
anyway.
I absolutely did inform the board prior to, talking with the Perry staff.
And that's not what I said. What I said was a teacher reached out and asked me that they had a meeting scheduled. They didn't know what. the meeting was about.
Okay.
Period. They had no idea what the meeting was about. That person asked me, do you know what that meeting's about? Are they talking about closing Perry? And I told them, no. I didn't, which was true at that time. A couple days later, we did get correspondence, as Dr. Schick, that they were talking about those 5 proposals and that 4 of those were gonna close Perry. And I thought, well, all right, do I call the guy back? I let it go. I didn't say boo. Let it go because it was supposed to be confidential, and I let it be confidential. And Dr. Shug did meet with the staff at Perry a couple days later. But what I'm trying to point out is in the essence of first learning of closing a Perry for us as a board, or at least me, I can't speak for anybody else. For me as a board member, the first I heard about that was sometime mid to late January. It was maybe January 20th, somewhere around. I may be off by a day or two, but somewhere around. And like I said, Dr. Shug is correct that she did tell the board before she met with Perry. But that person asked me before, like a day before, I ever got that from Dr. Shug. So that's where I think we can agree to disagree or whatever. But I mean, if we want to get into posting emails, I'll dig the emails up.
I appreciate that, Matt, and I apologize for interrupting. I just wanted to be clear that we worked really hard on making sure that the information was shared in as best way we possibly can. Again, as I said to Mr. Speak earlier, there is not a perfect way to do that. So I appreciate that it's been a difficult and challenging process all the way around, and I think it'll be really helpful to have the board have the opportunity to have the discussion that they need to have.
Do I have a motion and a second to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Member Herrera made a motion and Member Hauk seconded the motion to adjourn the meeting. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned at 11:27.